this meeting will be retained online in council's archives. Please turn your mobile phones off to silent. Filming and photography are not permitted in the meeting. One observed to be filming the meeting may be asked to leave. So I now declare the meeting open at 11:03, is it? I don't know. And I noticed that Councillor Stanton is on the video. Find the relevant paper. A request was received from Councillor Stanton to attend this meeting by audio visual link in accordance with clause 621 of the Code of Meeting Practice. And like we've got Councillor Cooley there.
Yeah.
Councillor.
Is it just the two?
No, that's it. So Councillor Crowley has also requested to join the meeting observably as an observer. Therefore, I move the following procedural motion. The committee approves the request by Councillor Stanton to attend today's meeting by audio-visual link because she is not able to attend in person due to work reasons. And two, the committee approves the request by Councillor Crowley to dial in at today's meeting by audio-visual link as an observer. So seconder for that. Thank you. Castles, I put the motion all in favour, please raise your hand. Carried unanimously. I think Councillor McNamara, I'll just say, is the second alternate. So given that, there is an apology from Councillor Moon, which I should get to next probably. Yes. An apology from Councillor McKenna and from Councillor Moorland. So, I'll move that those apologies be accepted. Second for that.
A second.
Thank you. All those in favour, raise your hand. They're carried unanimously. And that means I think that Councillor McNamara comes in as the second alternate because
Councillor Milland, yeah.
I don't think there's any attendees by Councillor McGregor, who would be the first alternate. So the acknowledgement of country, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we live, work and play. We pay our respects to Dark and Young country and elders past and present. We recognise the continued connection to these lands and waterways and extend this acknowledgement to the homeland, the stories of those who also call this place home. We recognise our future leaders and the shared responsibility there for our place and people. So are there any conflicts of interest? Save some time. I'm not going to go past everyone. If anyone's got a conflict, please declare it now. I think everyone's likely to. So, all right. Well, please note there's been no declarations of any conflicts. So we'll move on to the confirmation of minutes. Item 1.3. Is there any debate about the minutes? Somebody want to move that they be adopted?
That I was here.
I've just got.
Sorry, Councillor Stanton.
I've just got a comment on the confirmation of the minutes. There's a few corrections to be made with references to councillors who are not members of this particular committee.
Okay, can you take us through those?
Sure. 1.1 and 1.5.
Oh, I see, yes. Seconded by Councillor Wright. So he wasn't a member.
Was the alternate at the time?
I didn't think so.
I don't think he's ever been an alternate.
No.
But on the other hand, you wouldn't normally have a motion for an acknowledgement of country. So I think that's just a complete mistake.
It is because he's not even down as attending.
So that paragraph can be, paragraph struck out, I think. Sorry, Councillor Stanton, what was the next one?
1.5. Just another reference to two councillors who are not members as having voted for the motion.
I've got that. Me and Councillor Smith is on the, further down, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I see, yes. Okay, yes. So those in favour were recorded as Councillor Wright and Councillor McKenna and Councillor McQuaid. So McKenna, I think, was an apology, and obviously Wright and McQuaid aren't on it. So we can make that adjustment. That's page 4.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stanton. Any other corrections?
No, that's it. Thanks, Councillor Ayton.
Okay, thank you. So with those amendments, are you moving that be adopted, Councillor Stanton? Thank you. Seconded. Councillor McNamara, any debate? I'll put it all those in favour. Please raise your hand. Unanimous. Okay. Exception method. Please call out the ones you want to talk about. 1.5, I imagine everyone's going to want to talk about that. Coastal management.
Oh, no, sorry.
Coastal management program. CMP.
1.6.
Oh, down at 1.5.
I'll start 1.5.
The list I've been given.
We've got local strategic planning statement and draft open coast CMP 1.5, 1.6.
Yeah, but the run sheet somebody's given to me. It's got the wrong numbers on it, so I apologise for that.
So
Okay, so was it 1.5? 1.6?
Yeah.
Any interest in 1.7, 1 point, given we've got a big meeting, 1.7? No? That's the land acquisition, isn't it?
Yeah.
Numbers are all wrong on this. 1.8 is another land acquisition at Davidstown. Any interest in that one? Sorry, I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. Anyone want to call it? I'm sure there's interest.
It's actually at Saratoga. It's just on Davistown.
Oh, Davidstown, right, you're right. Thank you. Yes.
keep 1.9 in.
Yep.
1.10 in.
Yep.
FOGO.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it. I've done my duty. Anyone
Yeah,
else?
sure. Any others?
What's that?
I'll call 112, planning proposal statistics.
Do we want the
112 is DA statistic.
Oh, yeah,
113 is-
13, yeah, that's
Which one do you want?
113. It's all numbered on here.
Is your run sheet not lining up with the
No.
agenda?
I didn't do this run sheet.
That's all right. We'll blame you anyway.
Yeah, sure, that's okay.
what have we got here? Oh yeah, we've got that there.
Okay, so asbestos, 111, anyone interested in asbestos? No?
I don't think it was Steve.
So the ones, if I go back through them, if I've got it right this time. So the ones we're potentially doing by exception are the Mannering Park Pathway, Saratoga Road widening, Winnie Bay consultation,
No, no.
asbestos,
What did Winnie Bay? Yeah.
Yeah, we
Bay staying.
should be
what, Winnie Bay, okay, fine.
time.
Then review of asbestos management was exception and DO statistics was exception. Have I got that right?
Yep.
All right, so then we need a motion to move those, so that will be 1.7, 1.8, 9.
Not 1.9.
Sorry, not 1.9, you're right, thank you. I'll start again.
You really don't want to talk about it, eh?
No, I'm happy to talk about it actually. 1.7, 1.8, 111, 112.
Yeah, I'll move that one.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. Is there a seconder for that?
McNamara.
Councillor McNamara, any further discussion on that? All right, I'll put that. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. So for those members of the public who are here and on the screen, those items have been adopted as per the staff recommendation and won't be debated tonight. They still, however, may be debated when this matter comes to council at the end of the meeting. Okay, so we go to 1.5, the local strategic planning statement.
Is there a presentation?
We have a presentation. Is that
Okay.
Oh, before we go any further, I just happy to keep going for as long as we need to tonight, but bear in mind we do have an extraordinary meeting next Tuesday.
Just on one issue though.
Well, yes, but if we run late tonight, we could, it's a matter for the committee, right? I don't have a firm view one way or the other. We could put some extra items onto that meeting. But it's a matter, I mean, as I said, I don't mind. Yeah, sure. Happy with that. Sorry. Can we, yes, let's go ahead.
Scott Duncan, the section manager of local planning and policy.
Stand
Wherever you are. Scott. You can,
Yeah, so thanks everyone. We've just got a presentation on the draft local strategic planning statement. Putting to the committee, we're seeking for the committee to put it on public exhibition.
you're not working.
So in terms of the agenda of the presentation, I'll provide a brief overview of the LSPS, the journey that we've gone through, how the LSPS aligns with other strategic documents, its draft vision and the structure of the document, some of the actions and the next steps. So in terms of the LSPS, it basically identifies where further strategic planning efforts need and how to affect the particular council area with regional and district plans. It has a strong influence on what strategic planning projects are done by particular councils and has a strong influence on various LEP and DCP controls and how they evolve in a particular local government area. I guess the Central Coast, it's quite unique in that we're both a region and a council. So we have one regional plan just that applies to the same local government area. That's not the case for most other councils. Generally, there's a number of different local councils that share a regional plan. In terms of how change is affected, I think this diagram's quite a good one in that it shows how global change translates into national change, into state change, into regional change, and then goes on to affect local government, and then particular planning areas within that local government area, and then goes down to a site level. So I guess if you're looking at the CCRP box up there, it's essentially that's driving, showing how state policy changes affect the region. Whereas if you're looking at the LSPS, Local Strategic Planning document, it's primarily focused on region, the local government area, and particular planning areas or areas of interest. So the LSPS, it basically establishes a 20-year vision for the local government area, and it identifies those special characteristics that contribute to local identity, some of the shared community values which need to be maintained and enhanced, what sort of growth and changes are expected over that sort of time frame. So some of the things that might influence an LSPS include demographic change, state plans and policies, political cycles, community sentiment, councillor priorities and other local strategies such as housing strategies, employment land strategies, and also the geography of the area too, in terms of the existing settlement patterns and constraints as well. So you're probably wondering, why do we need to do an LSPS? Well, it's basically mandated from the government in March 2018. The government mandated that all councils should have an LSPS and all councils should have one in place by the 1st of July 2020. So on the 29th of June 2020, Council adopted its first LSPS. That was only as an interim document. So this document will be replacing that document. That document's almost 5 years old now. There's a requirement to review LSPSs every 7 years. So when we consulted with the community on that first LSPS, we received 160 submissions. And some of the key themes that came through included looking at trying to encourage more housing diversity on the Central Coast, the importance of having small parks, the importance of maintaining local character. The airport was a big issue. Protection of Aboriginal heritage was also a big issue as well, protection, and also a lot of concerns about the lack of infrastructure provision as well. So in terms of how we've got there, we've worked very closely with the community, the CSP team. So the CSP team and the LSPS team have shared some of the community engagement survey work that was done by Walcott in order to inform the LSPS. And I guess some of the key areas that came out of that work, which council needed to focus on it based on those surveys, included the need for more affordable housing, greater mix of housing. Aboriginal heritage was another big issue, protection of bushland, increasing the number of cycleways and footpaths, improving public transport, and also supporting and offering more support for local business and nighttime events and more, creating more opportunities for youth as well. This document just provides a bit of an overview of how the LSPS document is structured. So basically it's linked to CSP themes, and there's particular LSPS priority areas that are attached to each CSP theme, along with regional statements and place statements and actions. So I'll take you through an example, a couple of slides from now, just what that looks like. There's quite a lot of, I guess, LSPS priorities and actions in the document, so I'm not going to focus on every one of them in this presentation, just to give you a bit of an explanation of what's in there. In terms of the LSPS vision, it establishes a vision for the Central Coast. So I guess that vision, it's about connecting people with places and ensuring that local communities have ease of accesses to service, employment and public transport, public amenity. It also acknowledges the primacy of Gosford City as the regional capital of the Central Coast as well. And it also looks at how we need to get a plan for housing to ensure that it's in the right locations, so that it's serviced with infrastructure, it has the right services as well. And it's also about acknowledging where there are constraints as well. So where there's flooding and bushfire and coastal and other hazards, so need to be considered in that process within that broader vision. In terms of the actual structure of the document, I probably don't need to focus on that one too much because I've sort of covered that one off. But in terms of the community strategic plan visions, there are key, I guess, key themes. Those are the 6 key themes. They're our people, our environment, our place, our economy, our leadership. So there's a number of LSPS planning priorities which relate to each of those. So if we look at LSPS planning priority 3, that's related to leveraging our regional city and strategic centres to accommodate growth and key services. So I'll just show you what that looks like in the LSPS document on the next page. So if we look at what that looks like in the LSPS document, there's a number of regional statements below that, particular LSPS planning priority, including the revitalisation of Gosford as a vibrant regional city, making our strategic centres a focal point for density and key services. And then there's a number of actions that relate to that document, which include working with the state government to deliver Gosford City, including the Gosford Centre Revitalisation Project, Gosford Urban Design Framework and Streetscape Master Plan. There's also an action there that relates to implementing a lot of the actions associated with the adopted housing strategy as well. So there's a number of place statements in the LSPS document. So it breaks the Central Coast into 8 different place planning areas. There's a particular place statement that relates to each of those. So those areas, they're very similar geographically, and they have a lot of socio-economic similarities, and we use these planning areas for our own planning purposes, for contribution planning and for implementing strategy work. So each place statement has a brief future vision of the area. It has a description of existing character. There are some population projections attached to each planning area, and also there's some long-term specific strategies that relate to each one as well. So in terms of how each of those planning areas, in terms of how they relate to the wards, so each planning area has a different colour on that map. So the 8 planning areas are identified there, and each of the wards, or the council wards, are shown in bold black lines. So I guess for some of the coastal areas, like the Budgie Woy ward and the Entrance ward, they're fairly similar to the planning areas. But then some of the other areas, I guess when you look at the Wong ward, that's quite a diverse ward where you've got a lot of rural areas, Greenfield release areas in Watervale, Woodalba, Hampton Terrace. You've got Royal, and then you've got a lot of other areas going down through Rimba, down to Oxford. So Yeah, I guess it's just worth acknowledging which wards relate to which particular planning areas. So in terms of the planning areas, they're aligned. It's fairly similar from an ABS data point of view. A lot of the urban planning issues are pretty similar within each of those planning areas. And yeah, we basically use a lot of those planning areas for our strategy planning work. And I think the planning areas also reflect and are sensitive to, you know, a lot of the geographical and demographic differences that exist across the Central Coast. In terms of the LSPS and the next steps, we conducted some surveys and interviews and workshops in September 2023 and May 2024, which informed the LSPS and also the CSP. Recently completed the ward-based consultation for the CSP. The LSPS team was also involved in those consultations. So whilst a lot of that ward-based consultation, I guess, wasn't available when when we drafted the LSPS, we will consider the results of some of that consultation in the post-exhibited version of that. In terms of where we are now, we're basically in the reporting phase and we're seeking support the Environment Planning Committee to proceed to public exhibition. We'd be looking at exhibiting that in July and August this year. Following exhibition, we would be making, you know, any necessary amendments to that document based on community feedback, and reporting it back to the Environment Planning Committee. And if we receive the endorsement from council following that, then we would request the Department of Planning to sign off on that document. That's the end of my presentation. So
Thank you. Questions?
Yeah, I've got quite a few. So Scott, that wasn't my understanding of how the LSPS was meant to be developed, and certainly not for our council as an amalgamated council. So just looking at the legislation, and it talks about the wards. And look, I've just raised this so many times, I just don't know why it hasn't been included. It certainly talks about councillors being given reasonable opportunity to participate in the preparation of the provisions of the statement that deal with the ward, and those provisions are required to be endorsed by ward councillors, blah, blah, blah. And then, live streamed, and then the ministerial direction that specifically says amalgamated councils, the ward councillors need to be involved. And now we're getting a document, and I just saw that there was ward consultation on this, and I wasn't aware of that.
It's from a council resolution that
Well, why weren't ward councillors involved in that?
you were there. They were the workshops that have been.
Oh, the pop-ups. That's not consultation on a local strategic planning statement. That's asking somebody in a shopping centre, you know, what their favourite colour is, basically.
We have done it, like when we went out for the CSP and consultation, it was on the, like all those original surveys, things that we did were part of the LSPS as well. We've recently done our housing strategy. We've done a lot of projects where we have a huge amount
Okay,
of
that's
information as well.
sorry, that's fine, but that's not my understanding of what this LSPS was meant to be, how it was meant to be developed, how it was meant to be community driven, and how it was meant to involve councillors, ward councillors right from the word go. So I haven't even seen the document. The link I click on takes me to something else in the agenda. So I don't know if other people have seen it.
Can't seem to.
So I can't even see what the draft document is, but I won't be supporting that recommendation. I will be moving a recommendation that staff meet with each group of ward councillors to discuss how they would like to consult with their community in preparing the local strategic planning statement. Happy to go out with what's been written, but that's not the process, in my view, that certainly I've been banging on about for a while now, even if other councillors weren't supportive of it. So has anybody found the actual document?
Yeah. Well, I must admit, I downloaded it from the website.
Yeah.
So
Well, the link in the agenda to me doesn't seem to, yeah, it goes to.
Which one are you trying to find,
Item.
Jane?
Look, that's okay. I haven't seen it. The link in the agenda goes to.
No, that's okay. That's
At the end of 1.5 where they've got the attachments.
Mm.
And it just doesn't go anywhere. It either goes nowhere or it just jumps to
Oh.
the next point.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah. So I would like to move a different recommendation, Mr. Chair. I don't know how you want to handle this, but
You've got the floor, councillor Smith.
okay. Can I recommend that relevant planning staff meet with interested ward councillors to discuss how they would like to be involved and assist with community development and consultation on the draft LSPS.
Is there a seconder?
Yes, I'll second that. And speak to it too as well.
Yes, go ahead.
So.
Or does councillor Smith wish to speak to it first?
Look, I think I've said what I need. Well, sorry, the only thing I will say is that certainly in my ward, the community on the peninsula has asked me to, are desperate for a workshop with planning staff to talk about how the peninsula is going to change and shape and be developed in the future. That's exactly what my understanding of what the LSPS is meant to be, a land use strategy for the next 20 years. I'm not sure if it is or not because I haven't seen the document, but that's what the community down there wants to have a say on. And I would think that in my ward, the Mangrove Mountain community would equally be very keen to make sure that they're right in the middle of that conversation. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks. So it does seem like it's rather top down. And I acknowledge the amount of work that has gone into this because it's clearly an enormous amount of work that's gone into this. I recognise that and I thank you for it as well. But in terms of how community voices might shape the strategy as we move forward, that doesn't seem very clear at all. And that links to what appears to be a bit of a lack of community voice there in the first place. And I'm not actually criticising attempts to sort of retrieve those community voices, but it doesn't seem like it's enough. And certainly the pop-up that I attended, enjoyable, really well attended. All three councillors were consistently interacting with the community, but it wasn't about this stuff.
No, it wasn't about this.
So I think,
Yeah, we are proposing, like in the report, to actually do another, to rerun that process about the LSPS as well. And the intent was that, I guess on this too, so the CSP will be finalised and it may change as well. So then it will change this document. If there's anything, it gets changed when it gets adopted too. So once it's done, we'll have all the outcome of that exhibition, whatever amendments will get made, if it's to be adopted by council on the June council meeting as well, and then whatever amendments from that get changed, and then the consultation that gets undertaken as part of the LSPS. And then we were going to come back and do a workshop with councillors to say, this is everything we heard as well. So happy to change that process.
yeah, I guess in terms of the pop-ups, great idea, and certainly with a still relatively newly formed council, I thought it was effective. And issues definitely were identified. It's still not this though. And so I would really urge us to reconsider how we're going to do community consultation around this, because they weren't community consultation. They were
They'll meet your councillors kind of too.
They were really more like meet the councillors, and in that way they certainly worked really well. So not an either or thing. It's a more expansive sort of way of thinking about going about this, and I would like to think that would give us the opportunity to preempt potential issues going forward and be able to address them earlier rather than later, you know. Yeah, so.
I'll go to councillor McMurray.
Thanks, Chair. To the Director, it doesn't seem like there is an urgency with this. I think Scott said like this current one's 5 years old and it was a requirement to redo them every, 7 years or so. So from what councillors Smith and Walsh are asking about, it's not as if it's got to be done by a certain time.
No,
But
Right.
what, something like more workshops and that, what, is that like a 2-month delay, 3-month delay by the time you sort of arrange all what Scott's got to do?
yeah, we've allowed the whole of the next financial year. So I think the target in the draft operational plan is that the LSPS is finalised by the end of like June of the next financial year.
Okay.
So we've
Next financial year.
yeah, we've left a lot of
Right.
time.
I just mentioned the urgency was, I think, was it October 2020 or November 2020? It was meant to be finalised and go back to council. But anyway, we'll move on.
We've waited for the new council.
We've moved into the next stretch.
Well, it is a serious point that this was adopted as an interim because councillors were not happy with it. And they asked, and probably not these staff, to go away and work with communities to bring back a better version. That's now 4 years ago. So that's just not okay, whether there was elected councillors here or not.
Yeah, and I don't, I'm not saying that I think this approach was intended to kind of befuddle or not be as transparent as it probably should be. But we have an opportunity here to, you know, we do have community. I know as a councillor, and I know my fellow councillors are approached by people in the community who want to make a contribution, who want to have their voice heard, who, you know, so let's do that.
Right. Is there any further discussion? It doesn't sound like.
One more question, and that is a draft document ready that we could look at?
It's attached, yeah.
Yes, it's there.
Yeah, just doesn't open.
Yes. If you could send
Yeah.
a document that opens, that would be.
It's on our website.
Sorry, I can't.
Yeah, it's under with the attachments.
I have seen the document, I saw it just before, but it also needs amending because even just at a quick glance, it actually hasn't got the correct headings for the headings that we currently have with the CSP in terms of our place, are this, are that, are the other. It's actually incorrect. I just happened to open one page and saw the incorrectness there. So I have no idea, but it's the attached document. So it definitely, we need to have a closer look at that and make sure that it is actually accurate. And particularly if it is currently sitting on the website, that's concerning.
Yeah.
Well, it's sitting with the agenda for the meeting tonight.
Yeah, yes, okay, yeah, yes.
It doesn't send me any opposition.
And this question may well now be for another time, a later time, but whether a delivery funding program kind of sits next to this and what the roadmap is in terms of funding this. I'd be interested in more information about that as well. Yeah.
So I just want to tweak the wording on that because this is not an open-ended process where it can go on for another year or so. This is like a priority. Interested ward councillors, I would say within a month, by the end of July, to develop, involving community councillors, to develop a, local strategic planning statement to be finalised by the end of the year. I mean, I can't even see any land use mapping in the draft document. And a lot of communities have gone to the department's template and case study one and go, wow, this is fantastic. And what I'm looking at looks not a lot like that.
We are not going to replicate a lot of the mapping and stuff that's in the Central Coast Regional Plan, though. Like we have a Central Coast Regional Plan and it covers really in depth our whole area, region, and we don't need to replicate that in our LSPS either. Like where we could put some additional maps and things, but there's no point picking up that's already in one document and putting in our document.
No, it's that process of community saying, this is where we want residential development to go. This is where we want industrial development to go in our ward in the next 20 years.
We also can't be inconsistent with the regional plan because the Department of Planning will not endorse our LSPS. Like, happy to hear.
Not suggesting we need to
go
be.
do that, but we are very much governed by what's in that regional plan.
Wording.
30 July to discuss. Interested
Yeah.
board.
Yeah, we can definitely come give a workshop to councillors and then we can go out and do our ward consultation. Consultation with board councillors.
Yes, by the end of, yeah, thank you, Tom.
All right, since there's no opposition, I'll put all those in favour. Raise your hand. Thank you, that's unanimous. Carried. Okay, now on to the really good one, coastal management plan. So who's going to present on that?
I can present.
Oh, excuse me.
While we're getting ready, did everyone get the email that the emergency part of the plan wasn't in the original document?
Yes.
Sent out fairly late this afternoon.
And it's quite a big, well,
Just yet another one.
it's a document that's would take a bit of concentrating.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, and I mean, I admit, while I've been through it, I did have the
Yeah.
time to do it in detail.
So, you know, I mean,
Sorry, go ahead.
I bring some technical difficulties.
Oh,
Yeah, the clipper.
They're just putting some new batteries in. But I can start talking in the let's flip through some of this. Go to the next slide. And the next one. Okay, thank you. So yeah, council, the previous committee meeting, I provided a bit of an update on our 5 coastal management programs. Those are the Open Coast, the Tuggerah Lakes, Coastal Lagoons, the Hawkesbury Nepean, which includes the Brisbane water area, and that's being delivered with multiple councils, and the Lake Macquarie CMP, which has been completed with Lake Macquarie City Council in 2023. Next. The operational plan actions that are in our operational plan for the Open Coast CMP is to the exhibition draft prepared and ready for the committee's consideration by 30th of June this year. We're on track with that. For the Tuggerah Lakes, we're on track to award that contract. We've completed the action for the Coastal Lagoons CMP, and for the Hawkesbury Nepean, we're also on track for that. So we're on track, all completed, all of our current operational plan targets for our CMPs. There are 5 stages for the development of the coastal management programs. For the Open Coast CMP, which we're presenting on tonight, we're at stage 4, which is to prepare, exhibit, draft, finalise, and issue the CMP to the Minister for Environment for certification, and then it comes back for adoption by Council. Bit of background on the coastal management program process. It's been prepared in accordance with the mandatory requirements that are outlined in the Coastal Management Act and also the Coastal Management Manual. The department provides quite an extensive checklist for councils to work through that outlines what those mandatory requirements are. And so we've been working with the department on that. Also, been fortunate to get 2/3 grant funding for the CMP as well. We've had a number of consultation sessions with state agencies and other stakeholders, also multiple rounds of community consultation since 2021 with stage 1, and stage 2 and 3 in 2023 and 2024. The benefits of developing a CMP are sort of as follows. A certified CMP and the actions within that are eligible for 2/3 grant funding from the Coast and Estuary Grant Program. There's the potential to change the planning pathway for coastal protection works in there. However, that's a little bit more complex in that there are a number of other triggers that would bring significant coastal protection works, such as those at Wombrel that are under consideration at the moment, to the regional planning panel anyway. Those triggers being if it's greater than 30 million or greater than 5 million with council involvement. Also, there's a trigger for the local planning panel, which is more than 10 objections. It's not quite that straightforward. With a certified emergency action subplan, there's also the ability to works that are outlined in that to go from Part 5 environmental assessment to being exempt development. However, that is limited by the definition of what emergency coastal protection works are in the Act, which is sand, nourishment or temporary sand as well. There's limitations there. It also allows for other public authority actions. We don't have any at the moment, but there is the ability for other agencies through the exhibition period and further consultation to work with council to have an action in there. It would mean then that they could go through a Part 5 process rather than a Part 4 for those actions. Overview of the draft CMP. The objective is to identify risks and outline actions for council or other public authorities to complete to address those risks. It's then linked to the integrated planning and reporting framework of council. The CMPs, however, do not include actions for private landowners, which is one of the big issues, I guess, with the Central Coast being so exposed or with private assets exposed. A coastal hazard study was completed as part of stage 2. So this was quite an extensive study. This includes updated mapping for coastal erosion, coastal inundation and cliff instability areas over a 100-year timeframe. This will also, it's been included as part of the draft CMP in terms of the mapping at the back, but the full background reports also made available to the public at the same time. There are 38 actions outlined in the business plan over a 10-year life of the coastal management program, estimated to cost approximately 22.4 million over that 10-year life. Some of the key high-profile management actions, and in the essence of time, we don't have time to go sort of through all 38, but happy to take any questions. Some of those key actions include investigate the feasibility and responsibilities of long-term offshore sand nourishment licences, including working with the Reconstruction Authority and New South Wales DQ Department and other councils on a statewide project. That project and the initial phase of that project is nearing completion already, and we've had a recent presentation, the staff have had a recent presentation on that progress. Council has been included in that project with Terrigal, Wombrel and the Entrance North flagged as for detailed studies of that process. So happy to take any further questions on that.
Can I ask a question regarding the implement whole payment terminal protection solution for Castle and Land at Wombrel Beach? What is the proposal there in terms of what this embayment terminal protection would look like?
So it's
talking about.
It's essentially because the CMP is limited to actions for council or other public authorities. It's really only related to council-owned land. Yep. So it was the action specifically says of council-owned land now. It essentially means that whatever is, if something is approved at Wombrel, the council would essentially do its part to complement whatever is approved on council's own land. So there isn't.
It's not well worded though.
No, and happy to take advice in terms of.
And also, I guess my understanding, I guess learned over time, is that if you have bits and pieces of terminal protection, it actually can cause more problems than it actually solves.
Yeah.
In terms of neighbouring properties, etc., etc. So I'm just raising that as clearly an issue that really and truly is still up in the air, frankly.
Yeah.
So-
Absolutely, there's some uncertainty.
Sorry, Ben, is there a reason why that isn't included in these high risk, high profile management? Oh, sorry, it's just gone. Where's it gone? We'll bring that back.
The-
Thank you. Yeah, why is that not made more? Well, it's not even in there. So I was worried.
So the third one, and this is just a summary that I've taken here. I've tried to sort of ad lib a little bit in there. The actual draft CMP has a little bit more words around, specifically for council-owned land. And we're conscious that council only has powers in regards to council-owned land. So there is more detail in the actual draft CMP in regards to.
This is just a summary of some.
Yeah, this is just a very,
in the CMP.
very high-level summary of some of the key themes. Conscious that, it's a very long document and there's 38 actions in there, but conscious that this is an important one. But it's absolutely in there in regards to where council can assist with implementing the whole array of solutions so there isn't gaps.
So sorry, that third dot point that we're talking about is committing council. All the time landowners want to do something, it's committing council to do
Yeah,
something in front of their land.
Correct.
Right, so
Isn't that
we're
where
committing
at now?
council. Okay.
It's as per the resolution of October 2022 of council to include.
Yeah, we weren't here.
Yeah.
No, correct.
That's administrator.
Correct, but it's as per the resolution and as per the adopted engineering design requirements. So that's it's been drafted that way. In terms of in accordance, staff working in accordance with the council resolutions to date.
So that's an unknown dollar figure.
No, there's a dollar figure included in the long-term financial plan and the operational plan.
Which is,
1.8.
so,
I know this is going to be a contentious point for everyone. So, I do think it's worth exploring it as to exactly what it means. So I guess it's already been clarified. If there isn't protection on private land, nothing happens. So I really think the wording needs some fairly extensive revision.
Yeah, good. Yeah, okay.
Because to me, when you read that, and the words are very similar in the actual document, it seems to be talking, we're going to do this on our land, and doesn't say
Subject to DA.
subject to it being part of a total solution, I suppose, is what I think the words or something like that should say, without going to whether it's good or bad, right?
And there's an opportunity for staff to update and amend the CMP before it goes out on.
which is what I was just going to ask about
Sure.
that previous resolution, because we're not there now. Like that, I know that resolution still stands. I recognise that. That's not where we're at now. And so in terms of addressing that resolution and the need for that to be changed based on what you're telling us here, can that be changed? That resolution be changed?
That's up to the council. So
You have to take it to a meeting.
Because, okay, thanks, that's good. Because this reads to me like some years back, like Jane said, when we weren't here, there's been resolution since. I recognise that. I know we have to work with what we've, at least look at where we were, where we're at now, but, based on community responses, based on state government responses, I'm not sure any of this reflects that. And I think that's possibly problematic.
Could we come back with some wording based on what councillors have said about that particular section?
I don't think I've worried at this stage, Councillor Mac.
At this stage?
It'll be a matter of debate.
At the public consultation.
Yeah, we'll.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's what I was thinking.
go out, so
Yeah.
words have got to be changed, I think. If we can have a look at the
I
words.
think there might be some view at the council meeting that change it quite significantly. So
Yeah.
why don't we leave it till then?
And then after exhibition, like workshop with councillors on all of them that we receive as well.
So we also come to the, probably haven't got to that, to the nourishment of the sand on North Entrance Beach.
Yes.
So does that mean that if that stays in the way it is, do we still need other permits for that? Or when this is adopted, does that give us the ability to do it without needing further permits?
It's essentially an action saying that we can and do that already. It's an opportunistic sand nourishment. So it's essentially saying it's an action in the, if we put it as an action in the certified CMP, then it's eligible for 2/3 grant funding. So it's another potential funding source for that action. But it's also outlining that it's opportunistic and the sand may not always be there. So not necessarily saying that it's a solution to all the problems at the entrance north. It's certainly part of the solution, but it's only limited, I guess, in terms of what sand is available.
Didn't we before have to get permits from various agencies to do it?
We still carry those licenses and
Oh, they're still in place. Stop the EPA from prosecuting us again?
that's, yeah.
Have a question?
It's related, but different. So we can use the sand source from the entrance channel for nourishment of the entrance North Beach, south of Hargraves Street. There's a whole lot of other controls and things we'd need to take into consideration in doing that. Probably the biggest difficulty with doing that at the moment, as opposed to what we've done in the past, is that the beach at south of Hargraves Street in front of those properties is private land. So whereas it was previously nourishing on public land.
All right, sorry, keep going, unless there's further questions on those issues. The slides. Sure you weren't finished.
No, I think we're having some technical difficulties. That's all right.
Councillor Lamont's got a hand up. Councillor Lamont's got a hand up.
Oh, okay. Here's Councillor Lamont.
I think we're having some technical difficulties. That's all right.
Councillor Lamont's got a hand up.
I have got technical difficulties, so I'll keep the screen off. Just one question about the dredging.
Councillor Lamont's got a hand up.
Can you hear me?
Feedback's happening.
Yes, we can hear you. Keep going.
Okay, dredging. Can I speak?
Yeah, there's a time delay, unfortunately.
You'll have to turn the YouTube thing off.
Difficulties, so I'll keep the screen off. Just one question about the dredging. Can you hear me?
Barely.
Hello?
Yes.
Is that better? Sorry.
Yes, that's better.
Okay, so with the dredging in the lagoon, something that I don't understand, I've gone back through meetings, minutes and everything to meetings. I've never seen a resolution that actually says that dredging was actually going to stop in the entrance channel. And yet here in the CMP, we're talking about a commitment to do it. So I'm just wondering why we need a commitment if we've never actually had any actions to stop it. Any resolutions other than getting rid of the dredge. There's never been any direct actions to actually stop dredging.
Go ahead.
Mr. Deputy Mayor. And we have undertaken a number of dredging programs even since the dredge has been sold by council.
When was that?
previously At the entrance channel.
Okay.
Which we're also used to nourish the beach there in front of Hutton Road. So it does still get intermittent nourishment when dredging is required of the channel associated with the management of the channel.
So when was the last time you actually did that?
We did one in late 2020, a fairly major dredging program, and I think we did another minor program since then, but I need to check that.
As far as locals have told me, that would have been the last one that you did. So as I said, the commitment to me asking for a commitment to be in place when it's never, as far as I can see, no, I've looked through resolutions, and I can't see any resolution that actually says that dredging should have been stopped.
Yeah, as Ben was saying through there, as Ben was also saying, actions within the CMP provide opportunities for funding. So that there's an action in there doesn't necessarily mean it's a change of direction for council, and could be a confirmation of direction, but also presents us opportunities for funding under the CMP.
Okay, another question regarding your EDR. I'm getting the impression your EDR, the existing one, is quite flawed if you have to review the current one. That, you know, there's talk about reviewing. I understand documents are live and they have to change and everything, but what does that, your statements in the CMP, what does that actually say about the current EDR?
Answer that through the chair. No, it's not flawed. I think it's just an opportunity to, if there's any learnings for staff and council to implement those. It is conscious that there's a 10-year life of the plan, so it's trying to.
Can you give an example? Because as you know, that there's 3 DAs that are actually being assessed by that EDR. So I'm just wondering if there are problems with it, should those DAs actually be assessed against that EDR?
No problems have been identified. It's just acknowledging if there, for instance, if there are things that come out of the development assessment process that highlight, you know, in terms of anything to do with the engineering design requirements, it's just an opportunity to update the document. Yeah, it's just an opportunity.
So you're quite happy with the existing EDR at this stage, the ones in place?
Yes, yeah.
I think it's just identified in there as an opportunity for continuous improvement, not to shut our eyes to it, and for potential incorporation into future development control plans, so that there's more rigid controls over engineering design of coastal protection works in Wombrel and more broadly, as I understand it, across the Central Coast.
All right, can we move on with the presentation now, and then we'll come back at the end for questions?
Sure.
I've just got one more question.
No, at the end, Councillor Lamont. I'm happy to hear from you at the end. Just we haven't finished the presentation yet.
These couple of this slide here is an example. There's quite a lot of maps in the back of the coastal management program. This map here, there's a map to the left of Wombrel, Terrigal embayment, and the one to the right is at the entrance north. So this is just an example of the type of maps contained. There's quite a lot of information on those mapping. It includes the updated hazard mapping, and it includes annotated actions on the maps as well. So the idea being is that it's not just the tables within the CMP, there's also mapping to outline that as well. Excellent.
Can I just ask, is there a significant difference between the hazard mapping now and the previous version?
For some areas there are.
Okay.
Okay, keep going. Yep, next slide.
So yeah, issues. One of the big ones is on the Central Coast, it's significant private property at risk in the short term, even after completion of actions by council and other public authorities. That's consistent with the previous CZMPs as well. So that's not new. In the absence of suitable private coastal protection works, there will be a continued burden on council and emergency services when coastal erosion events occur. So that's just flagging that as a risk. Council's been working with DQ staff, but they've indicated there's opportunities for some bolstering of the CMP at the moment. We have already included some information being requested, and there'll be further opportunity as we work through with the agencies to do that as part of the exhibition period as well. In terms of the tasks remaining and timeframes, so tonight we have the draft CMP to the committee, council meeting on the 23rd of June, exhibition for at least 28 days, but we're sort of recommending 6 weeks, preferably early July to mid-August. Finalise the CMP in September, endorsement by council, coming back to a meeting of council, and then sending to the minister for certification by December. So that was the last one.
So we'll go to questions, and I might just work my way around the committee. So Councillor Walsh.
Well, what we're looking at with this information and what we've been provided for the meeting, given that previous resolution, is this CMP essentially still indicating by still looking to support that resolution. Is that council saying, well, our position is pro seawall?
None of the actions in there are saying that or not saying that. No, it's essentially because we sort of had to really focus on what are the actions for council or other public authorities. It's not an action for council in there in accordance with like the previous resolutions of council and the previous consultation with the community. It was a strong indication that community didn't want council paying for private seawalls, and the community wanted private seawalls to be on private land where possible as well. So, the engineering design requirements captures that, and the consultation that went on to form the engineering design requirements is trying to outline what are the principles when we're looking at coastal protection works. But it's a very complex process, but limited by what council's influence is, I guess, with private coastal protection works. It's acknowledging that this will need to be led by private landowners to address what is a very significant risk to private property on the Central Coast, not just Wamberal and the entrance north, but there's other locations as well that are highlighted in this report that over the life of this plan and longer will need to be considered. And yes, there's an action in there to look at offshore sand nourishment and all of that. But the reality is that is not that's not going to happen in the short term. We definitely want to happen as soon as possible, and we're keen to work with the state government on those actions. But the document sort of the draft CMP outlines that it's neither saying where private property owners should or shouldn't lodge DAs for coastal protection works at the moment. It's not really an action for council.
Yeah, I think the important thing with the CMP, we can't mandate any private landowner must build a seawall, and conversely, we can't deny them their rights to lodge a DA to build a seawall in the coastal zone. And I think the actions under the former CZMP, in which you tried to continue and emphasise here, is that the current approach by council is to try to take a more coordinated, strategic approach to that. So if owners do proceed down the DA pathway, as they are now in Wamberal, that can be managed in a more uniform and appropriate manner than all of those different landowners lodging separate DAs without any real strategic oversight. So there's still nothing in there that forces anyone to put in seawalls or stop anyone.
Including council?
Yeah, because they've got a right. Oh, so I think the approach there is that for council public owned lands to undertake works in accordance with the engineering design requirements, and I think that's been accepted that some of that wording may need refinement, to that if there was a seawall solution proposed that was moving forward for Wamberal, that council would then work in with that to ensure that we've got an appropriate management of that whole impairment in a consistent manner.
All right, I'll go to Councillor Smith.
Just a couple of quick ones. The seawall at the Haven, is that the sandstone blocks?
Yes.
It's already needing review? How old is it?
It was constructed for the Laser World titles. I think it was 2008, thereabouts. It's been surveyed to identify if it does need to be bolstered or replaced. It wasn't constructed with engineering design at the time. So it's been reviewed. Foundation, is questionable long term. So there's some options there, and that's why that's an action, CMP.
And sorry, which action is the offshore sand nourishment action?
It is, I think it's in the first page.
What priority and timeframe is it being given?
High priority, short time frame, CW SO7.
And just last one, through council, we've identified a number of committees that we're meant to be forming that report to here. Isn't there one that's deals with this. Where are we up to informing that committee? Because surely they should be having a deep dive on this subcommittee that we've
Yeah.
endorsed. Where are we?
Terms of reference are in draft now, and I think there's an intention to bring it to the July Environment Planning Committee.
So we're recommending proceeding down a certain pathway, and we haven't even informed the committee that we want to dig down a little bit more deeply into it. I mean, I'm just sort of saying, I just think that should be a priority, because like to sit down and spend a couple of days talking to staff about this, but they're sort of pushing ahead with the process at the same time as forming a committee to look at it.
Certainly the recommendation as it stands from staff is to place it on public exhibition for not less than 28 days. So I think 6 weeks would be, so through July and August. And certainly there will be things in there, I'm sure, that the community will want to look at it. Councillors as well.
It's the community, the committee.
Councillor McNamara.
Well, sorry, I will be making an amendment just to prioritise and fast track the establishment of that committee to.
Yeah, and I think that is fast tracked as much as possible, but there's still a process to go through with that, where there'll need to be EOIs for community members and appointment of community members.
Yeah, okay, thank you, sorry.
Yes, Councillor McNamara.
Just looking at the end game in all of this and looking at what's happened on the Gold Coast after the cyclone, they seem to have processes in place where they could get out straight doing things and, excuse me, putting rocks in bags and pushing the sand through their pipes that are already there. I mean, is that where we're going, or are we still going to have ongoing issues if we have more big storms and they just keep on coming?
Certainly, I think the Gold Coast works that I've seen are on public land, and so certainly with this council and the actions within this CMP that relate to public land. For instance, there's an action in there to do the stage 2 of the Catch Tree Harbour tow protection works. There's a number of other actions in there for council public lands, but private lands is, I think, the challenge here, in that council's sort of limited powers and limited, I guess, influence on whether or not residents do or don't proceed with coastal protection works. Is sort of the risk, I suppose, going forward, and the uncertainty. That's the challenge.
And in the maps, you showed us plenty of council land, but is there a specific map saying the coastal areas where that is private and this doesn't cover?
It covers all the land, private and public. So the hazard maps on there, it's one of the important actions there is communicating, I guess, the risk on the updated maps to residents and also other agencies as well, national parks, Crown Land, in there, so that they're aware of the risks. So the maps cover both.
Okay.
Councillor Lamont's had a hand up for quite some.
So go to the committee first.
I'd like to, well, first of all, this recommendation, I'd like to move an amendment to the current recommendation that's on the board to say exhibition for not less than 42 calendar days.
Not in questions, but that's fine.
I will ask a question.
Yes.
Yes, I think one of the issues as well has been around this idea of temporary protection works, etc. And, you know, at the moment, we can see a complete debacle, frankly, along Watwell Beach, where there've been these temporary protection works, which clearly now have got bits of metal poking up through the sand, and all these sorts of things. Now, it's all very well to say private property owners are responsible for stuff that is still in theory within their boundary, even though some of it may currently be on the beach. But the fact is, in the end, council ends up obviously having a responsibility to make things safe so that people can actually safely walk along that beach or safely have their dog if it's a dog-free, off-leash area, whatever it might be. So I think there's a real problem around this matter, and I'm wondering how that's actually addressed within this CMP in terms of, in what is actually allowable, because this to me is a complete disaster just waiting to happen.
There is an action in the draft CMP about reviewing historical emergency coastal protection works, reviewing
It's dangerous.
that, and where if required, as part of that review to have it removed.
Because we end up basically paying the cost to get it cleaned up. That's the reality. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, like safety issue, but the owners all want everything done, but then their stuff's lying on the beach and they do nothing.
And that stuff you're.
Which is really frustrating.
A few weeks back, it was not there prior to the dreadful weather we've just experienced. That wasn't there, that stuff wasn't there. So where does responsibility lie and cost? It's significant and it looks incredibly dangerous.
I had a couple of questions too.
I did, sorry,
Yes,
sorry.
Councillor Walsh, if you want to go first, that's okay.
I do want to go.
You're in mid-flow, so
I do want to go because I actually raised.
Oh, that's right.
Wants to go.
Amendment.
My council.
Go ahead.
Also remembering that we also have Councillor Lamont wanting to ask a question, but listening to you, Ben, I'm still feeling like from my reading that the CMP essentially establishes like terminal protection as a preference. Yeah.
Well, is there
It's council's preference.
for a particular, like, are you referring to Womberall?
I am. Because more is said about sand nourishment.
Perhaps that can be amended through some amended wording for that action to make that a little clearer about council's role and what trigger points might be for councils to do, to implement.
Probably a good idea because you can preempt that the community is going to react to that.
Sure.
That sense that council has a particular preference for terminal protection works at Womberall. Yeah.
So yeah, I had a number of questions. First of all, the consultation. I couldn't see anything where it referred to consultation with the affected landowners. Were they a group that was consulted?
Not individually, I think, in terms of the CMP. Going back, there has been individual consultation with landowners as part of the consultation, specifically at Womberall. There was 4 rounds of consultation that was undertaken as part of that project. And at Womberall, yes. Certainly it was open to all community members.
I saw that, but
Yeah.
they seem to have picked up certain groups and not the ones that I would have thought, were right at the interface.
Certainly there's an opportunity going forward as part of the exhibition through that.
Just in response to that though, so Deputy Mayor, like whose responsibility is that? Like clearly council has attempted to run this community consultation in a reasonably open and transparent way. And if the individual landowners haven't involved themselves, a bit like, the Max situation where we had the surf club saying, well, we weren't involved in that survey. We didn't do that survey. Well, so we don't recognise the results of that survey because we didn't do the survey. So
But particular groups were picked out. If we hadn't picked out particular groups, then I think that's a fair point. But anyhow, I mean, I'm happy for it to be taken on once it goes out.
Given that, and given what we've seen since we started on council in terms of the lobbying and advocacy that the beachfront owners have done, it beggars belief really that they didn't get themselves involved in that process. Sorry, but not sorry.
So then the whole question of private. So are we not allowed to put private property into the CMP?
I'm not aware, and
We've just chosen not to.
Well, I'm not aware of any other CMPs that are certified and how those actions would be included and therefore then also included in council's delivery plan. We've had a look and we can seek guidance from the state government as to how that might be formulated, but at this stage, it's unclear, I guess, to staff as to how that might happen.
All right, well, I'll leave it as a question.
What are you suggesting, that we identify particular private lots in the plan?
No, but that what we've heard is that it excludes private land where we've probably got maybe not the biggest issue, but certainly a huge issue. And the other issue that we know about is that it is basically impossible for private landowners to get consent through the existing planning system, at least going forward to do
So putting that second
protection work.
aside,
No, I'm not saying it mightn't be walls,
yeah,
right?
but wouldn't there be a whole lot of legal ramifications
think
of
so.
identifying private?
I don't think so. They're identified on the maps. Maps show where the problems are.
I asked the question.
So anyhow, I mean, that's something, please have a look at that. And I guess particularly in terms of what do they call it, the emergency action subplan. So a couple of questions. Are we only allowed to do under that, and I'm talking council at the moment, also public land, sandbags and sand nourishment. So we can't do rock bags.
We could, but it wouldn't be classed as exempt development. So we could do it if we did prior or did an environmental assessment under Part 5 to undertake that.
So shouldn't that be in there? Because I mean, I know at some stage, that's the sort of temporary. I'm talking bags too, by the way. That should be in there, even if it still needs a Part 5. Yes, they could do. Yes, same as bags, not rocks. Sorry, bags of rocks, not rocks without bags. If I can make that clear.
Certainly that can be looked at to make it so that there's opportunities there and it's not constrained.
Try to close things off.
Yeah, it's not constrained.
It could provide those other options, but not necessarily.
I'm saying temporary.
Yeah, but not necessarily provide any advantages via a different planning pathway to put it in there. I think that's all, but yeah, it could be included.
And then finally, coming back to private land and emergency works, is there any opportunity to provide some sort of pathway for private works in emergency situations?
I think that's been made really clear already.
There isn't at the moment.
Yeah, I don't believe it.
I guess the only opportunity is to see what comes out of the Reconstruction Authority and the Reconstruction Authority Act and whether or not the learnings from that would be outlined, while we're finalising the document to flag that, I guess, for future events, should that be an opportunity.
Seem to be passing the bucket back to us.
Can we go to Councillor Lamont, please?
Yeah, in a minute. Sorry, I just had one more, but I've lost the train. Thank you. That's all right. I'll go to Councillor Lamont and I'll come back if I remember what it was.
Few minutes, thanks.
Yes, Councillor Lamont.
Just going on the emergency rocks that were put down in 2020, they were supposed to be temporary as well. How long were they supposed to stay on the beach for? And the bags?
Yeah, to clarify, I was talking about rock bags.
There's rock
rocks
bags.
without bags. There's
Rock bags. There's already
Okay.
rock bags down at Wombrel
Okay.
at the moment. So I'm just wondering if they're temporary. If through you, Deputy Mayor, if the staff can actually tell me how long that they're supposed to be down on the beach for.
Yeah, I'm not aware of the mechanisms and the direction for the placement of those rocks and rock bags at both Wombrel and the entrance north having any requirement for it to be temporary.
I think they were. Well, they definitely have to be removed. But anyway, so I'll go to the next question. Staff that were involved with completing the CMP, were they actually involved with the WPA seawall DAs in any form?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, somewhat.
We had the same staff that were working on the EDR, the seawall DAs with the WPA, and they're also been involved with aspects of the new CMP actions for Wombrel.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You're sort of saying you can't force people or landowners to do anything, but we're also talking about a whole embayment solution. So that sort of doesn't make sense, because unless you're sort of saying, you're basically saying we're going to have EDR, everyone has to do the same, and we're going to support what everyone does as well. So you can't sort of say that you're not telling people what to do, because your EDR is basically providing that mechanism. Would you agree?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I think what we were trying to explain was that, yeah, there's nothing in the CMP that can require or deny the opportunity to pursue a seawall for any private landowner. What the EDR seeks to do is to better control that development in a coherent manner across the embayment.
Okay, so with the consultation, and I am aware of the previous consultations to do with Wombrel, and yes, the landowners, as you said, were involved with it. They're actually involved even with the emergency plan down there, although it didn't actually mean anything. But with the seawall at the moment, with the consultation so far, I mean, one of the things that I think has come out, people don't want the vertical seawall. A lot of them don't want a seawall at all at Wombrel, and they want sand nourishment. But I can't see how that is actually reflected in any of the actions that you've actually, the community consultation part, which was very strong, and you've actually even said that, but that's really not reflected. You talk about a balance, but it's not really reflected in what is appearing in the CMP.
Through the chair, I think it's acknowledged in, I think, everything that council staff have written in regards to Wombrel, that it was terminal protection with sand nourishment in terms of.
Well, you know, you're incorrect, because as I said, if you go back.
Councillor, let him answer. I don't think it finished.
Yes, and certainly there's actions in the coastal management program about further pursuing the feasibilities for offshore sand nourishment. And as I sort of said, we've had a recent briefing from the Reconstruction Authority and the state government on the study that's they're wrapping up at the moment, and that includes Wombrel Terrigal in that detailed study and the entrance north. So we're keen to further pursue that, and that's the reason for that action in there as well.
Okay, so thank you, but you're saying that people wanted terminal protection down at Wombrel.
I said that.
No.
Do you think that came out in the community consultations, that people want terminal protection down at Wombrel?
I didn't say that, and I think there's a summary of for all the consultation that council staff have undertaken. There's been a consultation summary that outlines the outcome of that in detail.
And it doesn't say
I'm not sure we're getting very far now, Councillor Lamont. I mean, we understand that you're against the seawall at Wombrel, and you've made that point. So we'll move on, I think.
Councillor Eden, I think I've got a right to speak, and it doesn't matter what you think about what I do and don't stand for. Are you clear on that?
I said we'll move on. Do we have a motion?
Change it to 42.
We've got the 42 days. Councillor Castles, yeah. Councillor Smith, you wanted to put something in there?
Yeah, so sorry, just come back to the establishment of this committee. So I think, Luke, you said the terms of reference were being drafted or had been drafted.
July.
Sorry?
Coming to July, EMP committee.
Can we fast track that? We've got the extraordinary meeting, I think you said next week, Councillor Eaton?
No.
Why is that?
Because we haven't got, I mean, we've got to write a report, we've got a whole few things that need to be done, and
it's got to be a bit.
Agenda will have to be done by, well, today.
Isn't it? Terms of reference, you don't have to write a report with the terms of reference. We've got a resolution to establish this committee. I mean, the terms of reference can stand alone as a draft for the committee to endorse or not endorse, surely.
We'll have to get back to you on that, but.
And then what's the process for recruiting the committee?
It'll go out EOI. Yes, and we run it usually like similar, like to the local planning panel. It goes out actually as a job recruitment. It goes out seeking people. They put their reasons why they'd like to apply and their qualifications. And
the turnaround time on that?
4 months. By the time we give
Have to
people
be.
Probably does take.
time to go out, put their submissions in, they get reviewed, we get it on a committee meeting, get reports written, it gets back to the MP committee. It's not.
Just on that, Shannon, is that similar to how it previously was in terms of the advisory committees when calls for expression of interest? Because I know, I've been on 2 of those previously, and that call sort of went out, and I mean, I recognise that it wasn't a super quick process, probably for those types of reasons. I'm just checking it's a similar process.
The committee calls on the CEO to expedite the formation of the.
Well, I'd like the terms of reference, draft terms of reference to come to the extraordinary EMP meeting next week, and just a dot-pointed timeline.
I can't agree to that because
Why not?
the staff can't do it. You can say, if possible, I'd be happy with that.
Has anybody started writing?
Yes.
Yeah. They're just.
Previous committees? There's been previous committees of this form?
Yes, there has.
Yeah, so you can't take those terms of reference and go,
Councillor Smith, the staff in EMP are absolutely smashed. We've had storm after storm after storm.
oh, look, I understand, okay.
Staff need to sleep.
So if
Sure,
if possible, I'll be happy with.
Well, but I think the reality is we need to delay some of this other stuff until we get this committee established. And none of us want to do that, but there's no point in establishing the committee after this stuff has been done.
Sounded like the committee wouldn't be established for another 3 or 4 months, going on those timelines.
We've got to get this out too.
Would that be correct?
Well,
So draft terms of reference for what's the committee called? The subcommittee, sorry, called.
The Coastal Estuary and Floodplain Management Committee. So that was a blend of just one of the.
That's all right. I didn't know what it was called. That's all right.
So.
and can we add a part, Mr Deputy Mayor, that says the committee requests the CEO expedite the process around, we've got Mangrove Mountain Committee that was adopted 4 months ago. We've got this committee, there's another one, isn't there? Another committee?
The Mangrove Mountain and this one both sit in EMP, so the same staff that have been working on response to storms, same staff that.
Okay, so then we need the CEO to allocate somebody to to relieve staff in that process. I mean, this is procedural stuff. It's not.
Yeah. All right, you happy with that? Expedite.
Allocate staff, I don't know, do you want me to say his staff? Because since he's got 35 of them.
Do it himself.
I prefer I think the first wording was better, expedite the process.
Okay, expedite the process, but that just puts more pressure back on the same staff.
Well, not necessarily.
How do you mean not necessarily though, councillor?
I mean, in terms of particularly going out for expressions of interest and stuff, you could give that off to whoever does the the public relations and stuff. So not all of it is within the I think the MP department.
And apologies to staff, you have made a good point, so acknowledging that. Staff are working pretty hard.
So, councillors, you started with this. Are you still happy to?
Yes, I'm fine with that. And
Councillor Smith, are you seconding it then?
Let me see. Yes, sure. Yeah, I don't know. I'm really concerned about something going on exhibition before this subcommittee has had a chance to review it.
I'm wondering if we defer for a month.
I mean, I don't want to defer.
The time frame when it goes on exhibition now for 42 days. How long then before it comes back to council? Or to this committee, I suppose. I don't know.
We could get the committee, the Coastal Estuary and Floodplain Risk Management Committee in place by the time it comes off exhibition.
Okay.
Before it comes back, it could go through that committee.
I understand that.
All right.
That
sounds
process would work before.
Okay,
I would be able to work the timing of that to get those things in place. So it goes through that, and then they'll have all the community consultation as well.
do we want to, just a thought, does anybody think it would be worth including that sort of fact in the recommendation?
Yeah, just say, so maybe down below, note that the formation of the subcommittee should be finalised, or that the subcommittee,
But it's sort of,
do you want to help?
Prior to the report on exhibition coming back to this committee.
Maybe we could put that, note that the outcomes of the public exhibition on the
Yeah.
CFP will be reported to the subcommittee.
And
Yeah.
considered by the subcommittee. Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
something like that, yeah.
I think, councillor Smith, you had agreed to second, hadn't you?
I will now, yes, yes.
We've managed to add a bit more, why not?
Yeah, anyone got any?
Okay.
All right, any more debate? I think it's been well and truly.
Well done.
Yes,
Just point of clarity, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I just thought I'd check up the date on that. So the formation of that committee was a resolution of council's meeting on the 29th of April. So it's only been about a month and a half. And so we're intending to come back to the July E&P committee.
Well done, Luke.
and remember,
Okay.
Oh,
this will only actually go out after that because it's still got to come to the council meeting, obviously, at the end of 23rd.
Then it's 42 days.
And then, well, then,
There's
be a
standing-
week or so, it'll be end of June before it actually even goes
Oh,
out.
well.
Where's
Yeah, all right, everyone happy? I'll put it,
Councillor Smith needs to go up there. Yep.
I'll put it, all those in favour, please raise your hand. Unanimous, I think.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, now we're on to, I think, Winnie Bay, I think, aren't we? Sorry?
Can we defer other items to next week's extraordinary meeting?
Up
What
to
you
you.
talked about.
I said I'm open to it. It's a matter for the committee.
I think we probably need to.
We are already at 8:30,
I think that would be good to.
35.
As I said, I'm in the hands of the committee.
I
Sorry,
move the remaining items be.
sorry, John, just sorry before,
Do we want to just do Winnie Bay and then do,
just,
Just a draft flood policy.
flood policy is going to take a while.
You want to be here till midnight.
I thought Winnie Bay might be relatively quick, but I'm
advise on
not
the
sure.
quickest one.
Depends on what they want.
We can,
Who wanted Winnie Bay?
I don't really, I'm happy to defer to the next, the extraordinary.
Can we deal with Winnie Bay, just to get one off? It's not going to be long. If it's going to be long, that's fine.
Is there a problem with Winnie Bay recommendation?
Let me have a look at it again.
Sure.
Where are we?
Maybe you just wanted questions.
Receives a report.
While you're doing that, I do think that the time for this committee should extend to 9 o'clock. And if we finish earlier, that's fine. But I kind of think this is going to happen quite a
When
lot.
you have 2 or 3 big ones. it's-
Yeah. I'm not surprised. I mean, I said at the beginning that I thought we might want to do this.
Do we, the only question I would ask, I suppose, on it is the point 4 with recommending to council that council request chief executive officer, et cetera, about the safety barriers. So nothing's going to be, what's there at the moment?
Nothing.
Oh, look, there's just, actually, look, you've already had it, right?
What's there at the moment? I was going to go for a wander, but I haven't, so.
There's a barrier at the end of the car park where where you would typically access the informal track,
Yeah.
but people, they do find their way around those barriers. So people are using the informal track right now, I suspect. And beyond that, there's really, well, I think there's a barrier at the chasm, which has been there for some time, just where it turns
Yeah.
as you're heading north. But beyond that, there's, I think, the odd bit of temporary para-webbing to try to dissuade people, but it's constantly being brought down so people can.
So what sort of safety barriers would these be? What, do we know what sort of?
I don't think we've really got that style.
Something a bit more
Horace,
substantial.
Yeah.
good night.
We're going.
Come back next week. Sorry, I did say that might happen.
Deputy Mayor,
That was my
Yeah,
question.
sorry.
so
Yes.
So was that answered?
Yes, that's
All right,
fine.
so does somebody want to move the recommendation then?
Actually, now that we've got it, I'm just wondering if we delete part 3, do we really need to have part 3 in it all? Can't we just draw a line onto this?
Probably don't need to.
Oh, the planning.
Yeah, I mean, basically 2 says that basically we're unable to facilitate major upgrades and that we just put in.
Yeah, that's good.
That's fine.
No, that's better.
I don't want to, yeah, I just think.
Good idea.
So you're moving that, councillor Castles?
Well, I'm happy.
Oh, councillor Walsh wants to do it? Yep. Yep. Second?
Second.
Councillor McNamara, any further debate? No, I'll put it all those in favour, please raise your hand. Carried unanimously. Now, we now need a procedural motion to defer. I'm just trying to figure it out. I think it's 1.10, the flood.
No, I think.
1.13,
Ah,
planning proposal 1.1,
Go
Just been him coming back next week.
1.14, which is FOGO to the extraordinary meeting
What is that? 3?
3.
Yeah.
Of 10th. What's that?
Next Tuesday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
10th.
Have you got those numbers?
So that's the procedural motion as the sex. All right, moved by councillor McNamara, seconded.
Yeah.
Councillor Walsh, is there any debate? Put that, all those in favour, please raise your hand. Declared carried unanimously, and I'll declare the meeting closed and see you all next week.
Thank you, Stan.
I may have to join online next week. I'll see how I go. But
I understand how it could be any problem.
yeah, yep.
Okay, fine.
For those guys, yeah, I don't think we'll get back next week.
20 years of service.
Oh, flooding, yes.
McMaster's is.
Oh, yes, okay. So we should have done the,
Yes. And then.
Yeah.
That's maybe short off.
As I won't turn up because.
Oh, okay.
Then it's such a.
Yeah.
Just tell them next week.
when are you off, John, tomorrow?
Sunday.
To get a resolution of the.
oh, no.
I hope the next meeting.
Oh, you won't be.